Hey guys, tonight we begin with a leap into the salty, wind-whipped world of 19th century whaling. Picture this. It's 1840, and you're standing on a dusty street in a small New England town, the air thick with dreams of adventure and the faint tang of the sea. The stories of whalers, those half-mad, half-brave souls who chase monsters across endless waves, have gotten under your skin. You're young, restless, maybe a little broke, and the idea of sailing for years to hunt whales sounds like the kind of wild gamble that could change your life. Or, end it. Spoiler: you probably won't make it rich, and you might not survive the first storm, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm so glad you've chosen to join me tonight. If you don't mind, I would love to know where in the world you're tuning in from, and what time of day it is for you right now. Feel free to leave a comment, and let me know. It's always such a delight to see the diverse community of history enthusiasts gathered here. And if you enjoy this style of calm, immersive tales from the past, go ahead and click that subscribe button so you don't miss the next installment. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not exactly sure how you ended up here, clutching a crumpled newspaper ad promising wealth and glory for anyone bold enough to join a whaling voyage. Maybe it's the boredom of farm life, endless days of plowing fields and milking cows that smell worse than you do. Maybe it's the whisper of escape from a dead-end job in a textile mill, where the clatter of looms drowns out any hope of something better. Or maybe, just maybe, you've read one too many tales about sailors battling giant whales under blood-red sunsets, and you think, why not me? Whatever the reason, you're hooked. The sea is calling, and you're ready to answer. It's not like you're clueless. You know whaling isn't a picnic. The stories filtering through taverns and churches paint a grim picture. Ships lost in storms, men crushed by flailing whale tails, crews stranded on ice floes with nothing but their own boots to eat. But there's another side, the one that keeps you up at night. Whaling is big business. Whale oil lights the lamps of every city from Boston to London, and a single voyage can make a man rich if he's lucky. You're not naive enough to think it's guaranteed, but the chance is there, shimmering like a coin at the bottom of a well. And honestly, what else are you going to do? Stay here and marry the neighbor's daughter, who keeps dropping hints about settling down? No thanks. So you start asking around. The local tavern, a smoky den called the Rusty Anchor, is where the old salts gather men with leathery faces and eyes that have seen too much. You buy a round of ale, hoping to loosen their tongues. One of them, a wiry fellow named Amos, leans in close, his breath reeking of cheap rum. "Whaling, lad," he says, half laughing. "It's a fool's game, but a grand one. You'll see the world icebergs taller than churches, islands where the women don't speak a lick of English. But mark me, the sea don't care if you're brave or clever. She'll swallow you whole if you blink." You nod, trying to look tougher than you feel. A moss word stick, though. The sea doesn't care. That's both terrifying and thrilling. Amos tells you about Nantucket, the heart of the whaling world. It's a small island off Massachusetts, but it might as well be the center of the universe for men like you. Ships from Nantucket sail to the Pacific, the Arctic, even the Indian Ocean, chasing whales that can fill a ship's hold with oil worth thousands of dollars. The island's rich. 2 mansions line the streets, built on the backs of dead whales. If you're serious, Amos says, get yourself to Nantucket. Find a ship, sign the papers, and pray you don't regret it. You thank him, your mind already racing. The next morning, you're packing a small sack with your worldly possessions, a spare shirt, a pocket knife, a Bible your mother insisted you take, and a few coins you've scraped together. You're not sure if you're brave or just desperate, but there's no turning back now. The road to the coast is long, and you hitch a wood on a farmer's cart, the wheels creaking under the weight of turnips and your own nervous energy. As the cart rattles along, you think about what you're leaving behind. A family that loves you, sure, but also a life that feels like a cage. The sea promises freedom, even if it comes with a SI wood of danger. By the time you reach the docks, the sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The port is alive with activity, sailors shouting, barrels rolling, seagulls screaming like they own the place. You catch your first real whiff of the ocean, a mix of salt, fish, and something wild you can't quite name. A ship looms in the distance, its masts stabbing the sky like giant needles. That's when it hits you. This is real. You're actually doing this. You're about to trade solely wood ground for a life on the waves, chasing creatures bigger than your house. For a moment, you wonder if you've lost your mind. Then you grin. Maybe you have, but it feels good. Let's talk about why whaling is such a big deal in 1840. This is your mainstream history lesson for the night, so settle in. Whale oil is the lifeblood of the modern world, or at least the parts of it that like to stay lit after dark. Before electricity, people relied on candles and oil lamps, and whale oil, especially from sperm whales, burns brighter and cleaner than anything else. It's not just for lighting, either. Factories use it to lubricate machinery, and it's even in soaps and paints. The United States, especially New England, is the epicenter of this industry. By the 1840s, whaling employs thousands of men and generates millions of dollars. Nantucket and New Bedford are the biggest hubs, sending out hundreds of ships each year. A single successful voyage can bring in enough oil to make the ship's owners rich and give the crew a decent payout, though. As you'll learn, the crew's share isn't always as generous as the recruiters promise. But hey, race the thing. Whaling isn't just about money. It's about ambition, exploration, and a kind of reckless courage that borders on insanity. The men who sign up aren't all poor farmers like you. Some are runaway sailors, others are thrill seekers, and a few are just trying to outrun their past. The industry draws people from all over: Americans, Europeans, Pacific Islanders, even former slaves looking for a fresh start. It's a melting pot on the high seas, and not always a friendly one. You'll see that soon enough. Now, for a weird little fact to tuck into your brain before you drift off. Would you know that whale oil was sometimes used in food? Not like slathered on bread, though, honestly. You wouldn't put it past some of the tavern cooks you've met. In the 19th century, certain grades of whale oil were refined into margarine or cooking fat, especially in Europe. Imagine chowing down on a biscuit made with essence of whale. It's not exactly appetizing, but it's the kind of oddity that makes you wonder what else people were eating back then. Probably best not to ask. As for the bigger picture, historians still argue about why so many young men like you were drawn to whaling. Was it really just the promise of money, or was there something deeper? Some scholars say it was about escaping the regime with social rules of the time on a ship. Your skill mattered more than your family name. Others argue it was pure desperation, especially for those with no other options. The academic debate rages on, with some claiming whaling was a noble pursuit of human ingenuity, while others call it a brutal exploitation of both men and nature. You're not sure where you stand yet, but you're about to find out firsthand. The journey to Nantucket takes a few days, mostly by ferry and foot. You're not exactly traveling in style. Your boots are already falling apart, and you're pretty sure the bread in your sack is harder than the ship's deck will be. Along the way, you meet other would-be whalers, each with their own reasons for heading to sea. There's a lanky Kiwid named Tom, barely 16, who says he's running from a stepfather who likes his belt too much. Then there's Eliza, a woman dressed in men's clothes, who keeps her voice low and her story to herself. You don't ask questions. Everyone's got their secrets, and the sea doesn't care about them. When you finally reach Nantucket, it's like stepping into another world. The island is small, but it buzzes with energy. Cobblestone streets are lined with shops selling ropes, harpoons, and barrels. Taverns overflow with sailors singing shanties that are equal parts catchy and crude. You pass grand houses with why widows walks those little platforms on the roofs where wives supposedly watch for their husbands' ships to return. Spoiler, a lot of them don't. You try not to think about that as you make your way to the waterfront, where the real action is. The docks are a chaos of sights and sounds. Ships rock gently in the harbor, their names painted in bold letters. Essex, Globe, Acushnet. Men haul crates of supplies, flour, salt pork, nails, while others mend sails or scrub decks. You spot a group of sailors bartering with a local merchant, trading a carved whalebone trinket for a jug of rum. That's when you learn about scrimshaw, another quirky SI wood of whaling life. When sailors get bored on long voyages, they carve intricate designs into whale teeth or bones, turning them into art. Some are simple, like anchors or ships. Others are downright weird, like mermaids with too many arms. You wake to the squawk of gulls and the creak of ships, the air sharp with salt and promise. Nantucket's waterfront stretches before you, a tangle of masts and ropes that looks like a forest caught in a storm. Your boots, already more whole than leather, crunch on the cobblestones as you weave through the chaos of the docks. It's 1840, and you're here to become a whaler, a decision that feels equal parts thrilling and insane. The contract you signed yesterday sits heavy in your pocket, a reminder that there's no backing out now. You're not just a visitor in this bustling port, you're part of it. Or at least you will be once you find your ship. The harbor is a living thing, pulsing with shouts and laughter. Sailors haul barrels of salt pork, their arms slick with sweat. Merchants haggle over coils of rope, their voices sharp as the knives they carry. You dodge a cart piled high with canvas sails, the driver cursing in a language you don't recognize. Everywhere you look, there's motion, men mending nets, boys scrubbing decks, women selling hot pies from baskets. The pies smell better than anything you've eaten in weeks, but your coins are too few to spare. You settle for a deep breath of the aroma and keep moving. Nantucket isn't big, but it feels like the center of the world. The streets are narrow, lined with shops that sell everything a whaler might need. Harpoons, oilskins, even little tin lanterns for the long nights at sea. You pass a chandlery, its windows stuffed with compasses and charts, and catch a glimpse of a map showing the Pacific Ocean. It's so vast it makes your head spin. That's where you're headed, chasing whales across waters deeper than mountains are high. You try not to think about how small a ship is compared to all that blue. Your first stop is the shipping office to confirm your berth on the Pequod, the ship you signed up for yesterday. The clerk, a sour-faced man with ink-stained fingers, barely looks up as he checks his ledger. "Greenhand, eh?" he mutters, eyeing you like you're a fish he's about to gut. "Hope you're stronger than you look. Pequod sails in 3 days. Don't be late." You nod, swallowing the urge to ask what happens if you are. You're pretty sure you don't want to know. With time to kill, you explore the port, letting its rhythm pull you along. The docks are crowded with ships, their names painted in bold letters. Charles W., Morgan, Lydia, Globe. Some are sleek and new, others patched and weathered, their hulls scarred from years at sea. You wonder which one is the Pequod. Is it the proud one with fresh paint, or the tired-looking one with a cracked figurehead? You'll find out soon enough. For now, you're content to watch the sailors at work, their movements practiced and sure. They're a mixed bunch, some local boys with sunburned noses, others with accents from places you've never heard of. You spot a man with tattoos covering his arms, each one a story you're too shy to ask about. Let's talk about Nantucket itself, because this little island is the heart of your mainstream history lesson tonight. In the 1840s, Nantucket is the whaling capital of the world, a title it wears like a crown. This speck of land, barely 14 miles long, sends ships to every corner of the globe, from the Arctic to the South Pacific. The industry here employs thousands, not just sailors but shipbuilders, coopers, blacksmiths, and merchants. The wealth is staggering. Some say Nantucket's per capita income rivals that of major cities. Grand houses line the streets, their owners rich from whale oil that lights homes and powers factories. But it's not just about money. Nantucket's culture is built on the sea, its people shaped by the risks and rewards of whaling. Churches pray for safe voyages, taverns toast to successful hunts, and every child grows up knowing the names of the best captains. But it's not all glory. The industry's success comes at a cost. Whaling is dangerous, and not every ship comes back. The why widows' walks on those fancy houses aren't just for show. Wives and mothers spend years watching the horizon, hoping for a sail that might never appear. You overhear a woman at a market stall, her voice low as she talks about her brother, lost when his ship went down off Cape Horn. You don't linger. The weight of her words is too heavy for a morning this bright. As you wander, you stumble across a weird little fact that makes you chuckle. Would you know Nantucket whalers sometimes brought their wives along? Not on every voyage, but enough that it wasn't unheard of. These women, called whaling wives, lived aboard ship, managing the captain's affairs or even helping with navigation. Some kept journals, describing everything from storms to whale hunts to the boredom of endless days at sea. Imagine being stuck on a creaky ship with your spouse for 3 years. No escape, no privacy. Makes you glad you're signing up solo, right? Still, it's a reminder that whaling wasn't just a man's world, even if the history books sometimes forget that. You find a tavern called the Spooder Inn, its sign creaking in the breeze. Inn's eye wooed, it's warm and loud, the air thick with tobacco smoke and the tang of spilled ale. You squeeze onto a bench, nursing a mug of something that tastes like regret. The room is packed with sailors, their stories bouncing off the walls. One man, a grizzled harpooner with a scar across his cheek, brags about a whale that nearly sank his boat. Big as a barn, he says, and twice as mean. You listen, half awed, half terrified. These are the men you'll be sailing with, tough, loud, and maybe a little crazy. The tavern's a good place to pick up gossip, and you hear plenty. Some sailors grumble about the lay system, the way profits are split. As a greenhand, you'll get a tiny share, maybe 1/200th of the voyage's earnings. The captain and officers get much more, which doesn't seem fair when you're all risking your neck. Others talk about the Essex, a Nantucket ship sunk by a sperm whale 20 years ago. The crew survived by drifting in open boats, but the details are murky and nobody agrees on what really happened. Historians still debate whether the whale attacked on purpose or was just defending itself. Some say it's proof whales are smarter than we think, others call it a fluke. You don't know what to believe, but the story sends a shiver down your spine. You step out, I wooed to clear your head. The cool air a relief after the tavern's heat. The harbor sparkles under the midday sun, and you find a spot to sit, your back against a barrel. You watch a group of boys playing near the water, pretending to harpoon a piece of driftwood. They're laughing, but there's a seriousness to their game, like they know they'll be out there for real someday. It makes you think about the cycle of this place, generations raised on the sea, each one feeding the industry that keeps Nantucket alive. Your thoughts are interrupted by a man sitting nearby, carving something into a piece of whalebone. His fingers are nimble, the knife tracing delicate lines that form a ship under full sail. Scrimshaw, he says, noticing your stare. Keeps the hands busy when the sea's quiet. You ask if he'll sell it, but he shakes his head. This one's for my girl back home. Maybe you'll make one yourself someday. You smile, but the idea of having time to carve art on a whaling ship feels like a fantasy. Still, it's another glimpse into the strange, beautiful world you're joining. As the day wears on, you visit a shipyard where the skeleton of a new vessel is taking shape. The air smells of sawdust and tar, and the workers move with a precision that's almost musical. A carpenter, his hands rough as the wood he's planing, tells you about the ship's construction. Whaling vessels are built tough, with thick oak planks to withstand ice and whale strikes. But they're also cramped, designed for cargo over comfort. "You'll be sleeping in a box smaller than a coffin," he says with a grin. "Hope you don't snore." You laugh, but the thought of years in a tiny bunk makes your stomach twist. You also learn about the Quakers, who dominate Nantucket's whaling industry. They're religious, strict about things like drinking and swearing, but they're also shrewd businessmen. Many of the wealthiest shipowners are Quakers, and their influence is everywhere: churches, schools, even the way people talk. You overhear a sailor mocking their plain clothes and thee and thou speech, but there's respect in his voice, too. The Quakers built this place, and nobody forgets it. By late afternoon, you're hungry and tired, your legs aching from walking. You find a quiet corner near a warehouse and eat the last of your stale bread, washing it down with water from a public pump. The bread tastes like sawdust, but you're too focused on the ships to care. You're starting to understand the scale of what you've signed up for. A whaling voyage isn't just a job, it's a commitment to years of hardship, danger, and maybe a little glory. You wonder if you're ready. Then you remember the alternative: a life of plowing fields or dodging looms. No, you're ready. You have to be. The evening brings a new energy to the port. Lanterns flicker to life, casting golden pools on the cobblestones. Sailors spill out of taverns, their voices raised in song. You hear a shanty about a whale that swallowed Jonah whole, and you can't help but smile. These men face death every day, but they sing like they're invincible. You want to be like that, brave, or at least good at faking it. You pass a church, its doors open to a small crowd. A preacher's voice drifts out, solemn and steady, praying for the souls of men about to sail. You don't go and you're not sure you believe in all that, but the words linger. Whaling is a gamble with high stakes, and not everyone comes home. You push the thought away and keep walking, your eyes on the harbor. The ships are silhouettes now, their masts swaying against a sky streaked with pink and gold. Your last stop is a small museum, really just a room above a shop, where a retired captain keeps relics of the trade. There's a harpoon with a bent tip, a logbook with faded ink, and a whale's tooth carved with a murmur wood. The captain, a stooped man with a voice like gravel, tells you about the gam, a tradition where whaling ships meet at sea to exchange news and supplies. "It's like a party in the woodle of nowhere," he says. "You'll see one if you're lucky." His stories are full of wonder, but there's a shadow in his eyes, like he's seen things he can't unsee. As night falls, you head back to your boarding house, the same damp, creaky place you slept in last night. Your room is tiny, the mattress stuffed with straw that pokes through the ticking. You lie down, the sounds of the port drifting through the window, waves lapping, ropes creaking, a distant shanty. You think about the Pequod, your ship, and the men you'll sail with. You think about the whales, those giants you've only seen in drawings. You think about home, and how far away it feels already. Sleep doesn't come easy. Your mind is too full, buzzing with the day's sights and sounds. You imagine yourself at sea, the deck rolling under your feet, the wind tearing at your clothes. You imagine the first whale, its spout rising like a geyser against the horizon. You imagine the stories you'll tell when you come back, if you come back. For now, though, you're still in Nantucket, a greenhand with a contract and a dream. The port is your gateway, and the sea is your future. You close your eyes, letting the rhythm of the waves lull you towards sleep. The morning sun barely cracks the horizon, but Nantucket's docks are already humming. You're up early, your stomach knotted with nerves and a breakfast of lumpy pour-I wooge that tastes like it was scraped off the boarding house floor. Today's the day you board the Pequod, the whaling ship that'll be your home or your prison for the next few years. Your sack is slung over your shoulder, heavier with doubt than with belongings. The air is crisp, laced with the tang of seaweed and tar, and you can't tell if the chill in your bones is from the dawn or the weight of what you're about to do. You're a greenhand, a nobody in this world of weathered sailors, but you're here, and that's got to count for something. You weave through the waterfront, dodging barrels and sailors who move like they were born with sea legs. The Pequod is moored at the far end of the harbor, its hull a patchwork of dark planks and faded paint. It's not the prettiest ship, but there's a stubborn strength to it, like an old dog that's survived too many fights. The figurehead, a carved eagle, stares out with chipped eyes, as if daring the ocean to try something. You pause, taking it in. This is it. Your new life starts here, on a ship that smells like salt and secrets. A gangplank sways gently as you step aboard, the wood creaking under your boots. The deck is a chaos of ropes, crates, and men shouting orders. You nearly trip over a coil of line, earning a scowl from a sailor who looks like he chews nails for fun. "Watch it, Greenie," he growls, and you mumble an apology, your face hot. You're out of your depth, and everyone can tell. The crew is a mix of faces, some sun-burned and local, others dark-skinned or tattooed, hailing from places you can't pronounce. You spot a Polynesian harpooner sharpening a blade, his movements calm and precise. He glances your way, and you look down, suddenly very interested in your boots. The first mate, a broad man named Starbuck, is barking orders from the quarterdeck. He's all business, with a face like he's forgotten how to smile. You present yourself, clutching your contract like it's a shield. "Greenhand, reporting," you say, your voice thinner than you'd like. Starbuck sizes you up, his eyes narrowing. "Ever been to sea?" he asks. You shake your head, and he sighs. "Figures. Stick with the Cooper for now. Don't touch anything you don't understand," which is probably everything. You nod, relieved to have a task, even if it's just following someone else. The Cooper, a wiry man named Jonah with a laugh like a rusty hinge, takes you under his wing. He's in charge of the barrels that'll hold the whale oil, and he's got a story for every dent in them. "This one," he says, patting a cask, "survived a storm off Japan. This one held rum till the captain caught us drinking." You smile, grateful for his chatter. Jonah shows you the forecastle, the cramped space below deck where you'll sleep. It's a dark, damp hole that smells like sweat and mold, with bunks stacked so close you can't sit up without cracking your skull. "Home sweet home," Jonah says, winking. You try to laugh, but it comes out more like a cough. Let's dive into your mainstream history lesson for this chapter, because the ship you're on is more than just wood and canvas. Whaling vessels like the Pequod are marvels of 19th century engineering, built for endurance over comfort. They're typically three-masted ships, about 100 feet long, with hulls reinforced to handle ice and whale strikes. The hold is designed to store hundreds of barrels of oil, enough to make a voyage profitable. Every inch is used: sails, ropes, tools, even the tryworks, a brick furnace on deck for boiling blubber into oil. These ships are self-sufficient, carrying enough supplies for years at sea, from flour to spare planks. But they're also floating workplaces, where every man has a role, from the captain to the cabin boy. The Pequod is a microcosm of Nantucket's whaling empire, a machine that turns sweat and danger into wealth. Life aboard is governed by hierarchy. The captain, a shadowy figure you haven't met yet, is king. Officers like Starbuck enforce his will, while skilled men like harpooners hold status earned through nerve and aim. Greenhands like you're at the bottom, scrubbing decks and hauling ropes until you prove yourself. It's a tough system, but it keeps the ship running. You're starting to see why sailors talk about ship's discipline like it's a religion. Now, for a weird little fact to lighten the mood. Would you know some whaling ships carried slops chests? These were like onboard general stores, stocked with clothes, tobacco, and trinkets for the crew to buy on credit, of course. The catch? Prices were sky high, and the debt came out of your pay at the end of the voyage. Imagine paying triple for a pair of socks because you're stuck in the woodle of the Pacific. It's a sneaky way for ship owners to squeeze extra profit, and you're already wondering if you'll fall for it. Jonah warns you to steer clear unless you're desperate. And you will be, he adds with a grin. As you settle in, you meet more of the crew. There's Pequod, the Polynesian harpooner, who's quiet, but carries an air of calm menace. He's covered in tattoos, each one a chapter of a life you can't imagine. Then there's Pip, the cabin boy, a wiry Kiwid who's all nervous energy and quick smiles. He's younger than you, but he's been to sea before, which makes him a veteran in your eyes. Don't worry, Pip whispers as you struggle with a knot. You'll get the hang of it, or you'll drown trying. His laugh is infectious, and you feel a little less alone. The ship's cook, Old Fleece, is another character. He's a former slave, freed years ago, and he rules the galley with a wooden spoon and a sharp tongue. No complaints about my stew, he says, ladling out something that looks like it crawled out of the bilge. You take a bite, and it's not terrible, just unique. Fleece winks. Whale fat's the secret. Don't tell the captain. You're not sure if he's joking, but you eat anyway. Hunger has a way of making anything taste better. You spend the day learning the ship's layout. The main deck is where the action happens. Sails are raised. Whaleboats are lowered. Blubber is boiled. Below deck, the hold is a maze of barrels and crates, dark and cool like a cave. The officers' quarters are off limits, but you sneak a peek through a crack in the door. Polished wood, real beds, even a mirror. It's a different world from the forecastle, and you wonder what it takes to climb that ladder. Probably more than a greenhand's got. By afternoon, you're hauling supplies with Jonah, your arms aching from lifting crates of hardtack biscuits so tough you could use them as hammers. Jonah tells you about the lace system again, how your share of the profits depends on the voyage's success. Last trip, I got enough to buy a new coat, he says. Then I drank it all in a week. You laugh, but it's a reminder that whaling's rewards are never guaranteed. You're risking years of your life for a payout that might not come. The academic debate here is about the crew's diversity, which you're seeing firsthand. Historians argue over whether whaling ships were early models of equality or just pragmatic melting pots. Men from all over New England, Africa, the Pacific Islands work SI wooed by SI wooed, but it's not exactly harmony. Greenhands like you are often bullied, and foreigners face prejudice, even if their skills are vital. Some scholars say the sea broke down barriers, others argue it just swapped lands hierarchies for new ones. You're not sure yet, but the way Pequod keeps to himself makes you wonder. As evening falls, the crew gathers on deck for a final muster before sailing. Starbuck reads out assignments, his voice cutting through the chatter. You're on the night watch, which sounds important until you learn it means standing in the dark, staring at nothing. The captain still hasn't shown himself, and the crew whispers about him, Ahab. They call him, a name spoken with equal parts fear and awe. He's a queer one, Pip says, his eyes wide-wooed. Lost a leg to a whale, they say. You don't know what to make of that, but it's another reminder that whales aren't just big fish. The ship feels alive now, humming with purpose. Sails are checked, ropes coiled, whaleboats secured. You help stow the last of the supplies, your hands blistered but learning. The Pequod is ready, and so are you mostly. You stand at the rail, watching the lights of Nantucket twinkle in the distance. The town looks smaller from here, like a painting you could hold in your hand. You wonder when you'll see it again. Sleep comes easier tonight, even in the forecastle's damp embrace. The ship rocks gently, a lullaby of creaks and groans. You dream of whales, their massive shapes wooding through a sea that's both beautiful and terrifying. You dream of the Pequod, its sails full, carrying you toward a horizon you can't yet see. You dream of yourself, a greenhand with a long way to go, but already part of something bigger. The sea is waiting, and tomorrow you'll meet it. The dawn is gray and heavy, the sky smudged with clouds that promise rain. You're on the deck of the Pequod, your hands raw from yesterday's work, your stomach churning with nerves and last night's stew. Nantucket's harbor is a hive of activity, the air thick with shouts and the groan of ropes. Today's the day you leave solely wood ground behind. The ship is loaded, the crew is ready, and the sea stretches out like a challenge you're not sure you can meet. You're a greenhand, still clumsy with knots, but there's no time to second guess. The Pequod is setting sail, and you're along for the rewood. You stand at the rail, watching the dockhands cast off the mooring lines. The ship lurches, a slow, heavy motion that makes your heart skip. Sailors scramble up the rigging, their bare feet sure on the ropes, unfurling sails that snap in the wind. Starbuck, the first mate, is everywhere at once, his voice sharp as he barks orders. Heave you louts. Get that mainsail up. You don't know what half the words mean, but you jump when he looks your way, hauling on a rope with more enthusiasm than skill. The deck tilts under you, and you grab a rail to keep from falling. So this is what sailing feels like, half thrill, half terror. The Pequod woods out of the harbor, Nantucket shrinking behind you. The town's cobblestone streets and glowing lanterns fade into a smudge of color, then vanish as the ship rounds a headland. You're surrounded by water now, a vast, rolling gray that makes you feel small. The wind picks up, cold and salty, tugging at your jacket. You pull it tighter, wishing you'd bought that oilskin you saw in the chandlery. Too late now. The sea doesn't care about your wardrobe. Your job, for now, is to stay out of the way. Jonah, the cooper, finds you gawking and hands you a bucket. Scrub the deck, he says, his grin half pity, half amusement. Keeps you busy and the officers happy. You nod, dipping the brush into seawater and scrubbing at planks that look clean already. The work is mindless, but it gives you time to watch the crew. Pequod, the harpooner, is coiling rope with a quiet focus that makes you feel like a bumbling key would. Pip, the cabin boy, darts around, carrying messages and dodging curses. Everyone moves with purpose, and you're determined to learn their rhythm. Let's pause for your mainstream history lesson, because setting sail is a big deal in the whaling world. In the 1840s, a whaling voyage begins with months of preparation, stocking supplies, hiring crew, outfitting the ship. Once you leave port, you're on your own, cut off from the world for years. The Pequod carries everything it needs: food, water, tools, even spare parts for repairs. A typical voyage might head to the Atlantic first, then the Pacific or Arctic, following whale migrations. The goal is simple: fill the hold with oil, but the journey is anything but. You'll sail thousands of miles, facing storms, scurvy, and whales that fight back. The industry's success depends on these voyages, which fuel Nantucket's economy and light cities across the globe. But for every ship that returns rich, another limps home empty or doesn't return at all. The captain, Ahab, finally shows himself as the ship clears the harbor. He's a tall, lean figure, his face carved with lines deep as the sea itself. One leg is missing below the knee, replaced by a peg of polished whalebone that thumps on the deck. The crew falls silent when he appears, their eyes wary. Ahab doesn't speak, just stands at the helm, staring out at the horizon like he's locked in a private war. You've heard the rumors: his leg, a whale, A grudge, but you're too far down the pecking order to ask. Starbuck mutters something about keeping the men sharp, and the crew snaps back to work. You scrub harder, hoping Ahab doesn't notice you. Hey Race, a weird little fact to tuck away. Whaling ships like the Pequod often carried tripods, giant iron cauldrons for boiling blubber into oil right on deck. But would you know they were sometimes used for cooking crew meals? Imagine a pot that's been simmering whale fat all day, then gets a quick rinse maybe, and suddenly it's making your soup. It's not exactly gourmet dining, and you're already dreading Old Fleece's next special. The crew jokes about it, but you suspect there's truth in the grumbling. Whaling life is nothing if not practical. The day passes in a blur of work and wind. You're assigned to the afternoon watch, which means standing at the bow, staring at the sea for hours. Looking for whales, Starbuck says, but you're pretty sure it's just a way to keep greenhands busy. The ocean is endless, a rolling expanse that makes your eyes ache. You see nothing but waves and the occasional gull, but the monotony is oddly calming. Pip joins you for a bit, chattering about his last voyage. Saw a whale breach once, he says, mimicking the leap with his arms. Thought it'd land on us. You laugh, but the image sticks a creature big enough to crush the Pequod like a toy. By evening, the ship is well out to sea, Nantucket a memory. The crew gathers for supper in the forecastle, a dim space lit by a single lantern. Old Fleece serves up salt pork and hardtack, which you gnaw like a dog with a bone. The talk is loud, full of boasts and insults that sound friendlier than they should. Pequod eats in silence, his presence a quiet anchor in the chaos. You're starting to like these men, or at least respect them. They're rough, but they're your rough now. The academic debate here is about the psychological toll of leaving port. Historians argue over what drove men to endure years at sea, cut off from family and comfort. Some say it was the lure of adventure, a chance to test yourself against nature. Others point to economics. Whaling was one of the few jobs open to men with no skills or connections. A few scholars even suggest it was about identity, a way to forge a new self in a world that wouldn't care about your past. Whatever the truth, you feel it now, the mix of freedom and fear as the land fades away. You're not just leaving Nantucket, you're leaving the person you were. Night falls, and you're back on watch, the stars sharp above you. The Pequod cuts through the waves, its sails full, its timbers creaking like an old house. You lean against the rail, the wind tugging at your hair. The sea is dark, almost black, but it glitters under the moon. You wonder what's down there. Whales, yes, but also mysteries you'll never know. The thought is humbling, but it's also why you're here. You want to see the world, not just read about it. Sleep comes late, in your cramped bunk below deck. The forecastle is a symphony of snores and groans, the air thick with the smell of unwashed bodies. You lie awake, listening to the ship's heartbeat, the slap of waves, the hum of wind in the rigging. You think about home, about the fields you'll never plow again, the family you might not see for years. You think about Ahab, his peg leg thumping in your dreams. You think about the whales, waiting somewhere in the dark. The Pequod is your world now, and the sea is your road. You close your eyes, letting the motion of the waves carry you toward sleep. The Pequod slices through the Atlantic, a week out from Nantucket, and you are starting to feel the sea in your bones. The deck rolls beneath your feet, a constant sway that's gone from nauseating to almost natural. Dawn paints the sky in pinks and golds, but you're already up, scrubbing the planks with a brush that's fraying faster than your patience. Life at sea is a grind, endless tasks, endless waves, endless waiting. You're a greenhand, the lowest rung on this floating ladder, and every sailor seems eager to remind you. But there's a rhythm to it, a pulse you're learning to follow. Even if your hands are blistered and your back aches like you've been hauling whales already. Your day starts with the morning watch, standing at the bow with Pip, the cabin boy, who's become your unofficial wood. The air is sharp, salted with spray, and you pull your jacket tight against the chill. Pip points out the horizon, a line so straight it feels like the edge of the world. "Keep your eyes peeled," he says, his voice half lost in the wind. Whales don't announce themselves. You nod, squinting at the gray expanse, but all you see is water and more water. The lookout in the crow's nest hasn't called there she blows yet, so you're stuck watching, waiting, and trying not to trip over your own feet. Life aboard the Pequod is built on routine, and you're getting the hang of it, sort of. The day is split into watches, for hour shifts that govern everything. You stand watch, scrub decks, mend sails, or help Jonah, the cooper, check the barrels in the hold. Meals are at noon and dusk, served in the forecastle by Old Fleece, whose cooking is a gamble between edible and maybe just eat the plate. Sleep comes in snatches. Your bunk a narrow shelf in a room that smells like damp socks and despair. You're tired all the time, but there's a strange PRI wood in it, like you're earning your place with every splinter and bruise. Let's dive into your mainstream history lesson, because life at sea is the backbone of whaling. In the 1840s, a whaling ship is a self-contained world, designed to survive years without touching land. The Pequod carries enough food hardtack, salt pork, beans to feed 30 men for 3 years, though fresh is a distant memory after the first month. Water is rationed, stored in casks that grow slimy if not watched. The crew's work is relentless, maintaining the ship, chasing whales, processing oil. Discipline is iron tight, enforced by officers like Starbuck, whole flog a man for slacking. It's a hard life, but it's what powers Nantucket's wealth, turning whale blubber into the oil that lights the world. A successful voyage can yield 2,000 barrels of oil, worth tens of thousands of dollars. But every day at sea is a bet against storms, disease, and bad luck. The crew is your world now, and they're a mixed bag. Pequod, the harpooner, is a quiet giant. His tattoo's a map of stories you're too shy to ask about. He's kind, though, slipping you an extra biscuit when Fleece isn't looking. Starbuck is all duty, his face set like he's carrying the ship on his shoulders. Pip is your shadow, always ready with a joke or a warning about which sailors to avoid would. Then there's Ahab, the captain, who's more myth than man. He paces the quarterdeck at odd hours, his peg leg thumping, his eyes fixed on the sea like he's hunting something bigger than whales. You steer clear, but his presence is a weight, like a storm cloud no one mentions. Hey race, a weird little fact to make you grin. Whaling crews sometimes held gamming parties when they met other ships at sea. But would you know they also swapped mail? Sailors would pass letters to other ships, hoping they'd reach home years later. Imagine writing to your mom, knowing she might not read it until you're halfway across the Pacific or not at all if the ship sinks. It's a fragile kind of hope, and you're already thinking about scribbling a note, just in case. Jonah says he's got a letter from his last voyage still floating out there somewhere. Probably in a whale's belly, he jokes, and you laugh, but it's a nervous kind of laugh. The work never stops. Today, you're helping mend a sail, your fingers fumbling with a needle the size of a dagger. The canvas is heavy, stiff with salt, and every stitch feels like a battle. Jonah sits nearby, patching a barrel and humming a shanty about a merman wood who steals hearts and sinks ships. You'll get it, he says when you curse a tangled thread. Sea teaches patience, or it breaks you. You're not sure you want either, but you keep stitching, the needle pricking your thumb more than once. The pain is a reminder you're alive, which feels like a win out here. The academic debate is about the social structure of whaling crews. Historians argue over whether life at sea was a great equalizer or just another kind of servitude. On one hand, men like Pequod, a Pacific Islander, can rise to harpooner, a role of respect. On the other, greenhands like you are little more than grunts, pilot a fraction of what officers earn. Some scholars say the ship's hierarchy mirrored land's class system, with captains as lords and greenhands as peasants. Others argue the shared danger created a kind of brotherhood, where skill trumped status. You're not sure yet Queequeg's respected, but you're still dodging glares from sailors who think you're useless. Time will tell which SI Wood's right. By afternoon, you're on the mainmast, helping adjust the sails. The height is dizzying, the wind clawing at your clothes. You cling to the rigging, your heart hammering, while a sailor named Stubb laughs from below. "Don't look down, Greenie," he shouts. You do, of course, and the deck seems miles away. You force yourself to focus, tying the knot Starbuck showed you. It holds, and Stubb gives you a nod, which feels like a medal. You're learning, slowly, and the sea is starting to feel less like an enemy. Supper is a quiet affair, the crew too tired for much talk. Fleece's stew is better tonight, or maybe you're just too hungry to care. You sit next to Pip, who's carving a piece of wood into something that might be a fish. "For luck," he says, showing you the half-finished shape. You nod, wishing you had something to hold on to out here. The forecastle is warm, the lantern casting shadows that dance like ghosts. Queequeg sharpens his harpoon nearby, the scrape of metal a steady rhythm. You're starting to see the crew as a family, not the cozy kind, but the kind that fights and forgives. Night watch is your least favorite shift. You're at the bow again, the sea black and endless. The stars are out, a blanket of light that makes you feel both tiny and infinite. Pip's asleep, and it's just you and the wind. You think about home, about the letter you might write. You think about the whales still out there, waiting. You think about Ahab, his obsession a shadow over the ship. The Pequod creaks, a living thing carrying you deeper into the unknown. You're not the same person who left Nantucket. The sea's changing you, one wave at a time. Sleep, when it comes, is heavy. Your bunk is a cocoon, the ship's motion a lullaby. You dream of waves, of sails snapping in the wind, of a whale's eye staring back at you. The Pequod is your world now, and the sea is your teacher. You're a greenhand, but you're learning to belong to this ship, this crew, this life. The horizon is calling, and you're ready to answer. The Pequod is 3 weeks out, slicing through an Atlantic that's turned deceptively calm. You're on the morning watch, perched at the bow with a wind that's more breeze than bite. Your hands are calloused now, your balance better, though you still trip over ropes when Starbuck's watching. The sea is a mirror today, reflecting a sky so blue it hurts to look at. You're scanning the horizon, eyes sore from squinting, when the lookout's cry splits the air. There she blows. Your heart jumps. A whale. Your first whale. The deck erupts into chaos, and you're swept up in it, a green hand caught in the Pequod's sudden pulse. You scramble to the rail, craning to see. Far off, a spout rises, a geyser of mist that catches the sunlight. Then another, and another, like signals from some secret world below. Sperm whales. The lookout shouts, and the crew cheers, a raw, hungry sound. Starbuck's voice cuts through. Lower the boats. Move, you sluggards. You're not sure what to do, so you stick close to Pip, who's already hauling gear. Stay sharp, he whispers, his eyes bright. This is what we're here for. Your stomach twists excitement, fear, and a flicker of awe. That spout is no drawing in a book. It's real, and you're about to chase it. The whaleboats are swung out, 4 of them, each a fragile sliver of wood against the sea's vastness. You're assigned to Starbuck's boat, a stroke of luck or a curse, depending on how you look at it. You climb in, your legs shaky, and grab an oar. Queequeg is at the bow, harpoon in hand, his face calm as stone. The boat hits the water with a slap, and you're off, rowing hard, the Pequod shrinking behind you. The sea feels alive now, every wave a reminder of how small you are. Starbuck steers, his voice steady. Pull, lads. She's just ahead. You pull, your arms burning, your breath ragged. The spout is closer, a beacon in the blue. Let's pause for your mainstream history lesson, because spotting a whale is the heart of whaling. Sperm whales, the Pequod's main target, were the prize of the 19th century. Their oil, especially the spermaceti from their heads, was lit with gold used for candles, lamps, and even high-end cosmetics. A single whale could yield 90 barrels of oil, worth thousands of dollars. But finding them was no easy task. Whalers relied on lookouts, perched high in the crow's nest, to spot spouts from miles away. Once sighted, the chase began, with small boats launched to pursue a creature that could dive a mile deep or smash a boat with one flick of its tail. The industry's wealth depended on these moments, but so would its dangers. More men died in whaleboats than anywhere else on a voyage. The whale is closer now. It's back a dark island breaking the surface. You see it roll, a massive shape that makes your throat tight. It's bigger than you imagined, maybe 50 feet, its skin slick and scarred. Queequeg stands, harpoon raised, waiting for Starbuck's signal. You row, sweat stinging your eyes, the boat bouncing on waves kicked up by the whale's movement. Steady. Starbuck calls. She's sounding. The whale dives, its tail flipping skyward, a slab of flesh that could crush you all. The sea goes still, and you hold your breath, or is frozen. Minutes pass, endless, until a new spout erupts 100 yards away. The chase is on again. Hey race, a weird little fact to lighten the tension. Sperm whales have a bizarre habit called logging, where they float motionless at the surface like they're napping. Sailors thought it was a chance to sneak up, but it's actually a resting state between deep dives. Imagine a creature the size of a house just chilling, oblivious to the boats creeping closer. You're not sure if this whale was logging earlier, but it's definitely not napping now. It's fast, and you're struggling to keep up, your arms screaming with every stroke. The boat closes in, the whale's spout so near you feel the mist on your face. Queequeg's ready, his harpoon gleaming. Starbuck's voice is low, urgent. Now? Queequeg throws, the harpoon slicing through the air, burying itself in the whale's flank. A cheer goes up, but it's cut short as the whale thrashes, the sea exploding around you. The line attached to the harpoon sings, uncoiling so fast it smokes. You grip the boat, praying the rope doesn't snag. The whale dives again, dragging the boat in a wild re-wood in Nantucket sleigh re-wooed. Pip called it once, and now you know why. The speed is dizzying, the boat skimming waves like a stone. The academic debate is about the ethics of this moment. Historians still argue over the impact of 19th century whaling on whale populations. Some say the industry pushed sperm whales to the brink, with hundreds of thousands killed by the 1840s. Others argue the oceans were vast enough that whales could recover, and the real decline came later with modern harpoons. There's no consensus, but as you cling to the boat, the whale's power feels infinite, like nothing could ever bring it down. Still, you're part of this hunt, and the weight of it settles on you, a mix of thrill and guilt you can't quite name. The whale tires, its dives shorter, its spouts weaker. Queequeg lands another harpoon, and the sea turns red, a sight that makes your stomach lurch. You're not used to this, not yet. The boat holds steady as the whale rolls, its eye catching yours for a moment to dark, knowing gaze that you'll never forget. Starbuck signals to finish it, and a lance goes deep, ending the struggle. The whale floats, lifeless, and the crew is quiet, the only sound the creak of oars and your own heavy breathing. You de-wood it. Your first whale. But the victory feels heavy. like you've crossed a line you can't uncross. The Pequod looms closer as you tow the whale, a slow, grueling task. The crew on deck cheers, but you're too tired to join in. Your arms are jelly, your hands raw from the oar. Starbuck claps your shoulder, a rare gesture. "Not bad, Greenie," he says, and you manage a smile. Queequeg is silent, cleaning his harpoon with a care that feels almost reverent. Pip, back on the ship, is already spinning the story, making it sound like you fought a sea monster. You let him talk. The truth is enough for now. Night falls as the whale is secured alongside Wood the Pequod, its bulk a shadow in the water. You're on deck, helping tie it down, the smell of blood and oil thick in the air. Ahab watches from the quarterdeck, his face unreadable, his peg leg a steady thump. You wonder what he sees in the whale prophet, revenge, or something else. The crew is subdued. The day's work too raw for shanties or laughter. Supper is quick. Fleeces stew a warm anchor in your gut. You eat in the forecastle, the lantern swaying, the ship rocking gently. Sleep is fitful, your bunk a hard slap. You dream of the whale's eye, of the sea turning red, of Queequeg's harpoon flashing in the sun. The Pequod carries you forward, deeper into the Atlantic, toward more whales, more chases. You're a whaler now, not just a greenhand. The sea has marked you, and you're starting to understand its pull, its beauty, its cruelty, its truth. You close your eyes, the waves a lullaby, and let the ship carry you into the dark. The Pequod hums with purpose a month into the Atlantic, and you're no longer the greenhand who stumbled aboard. Your hands are tough, your balance sure, and you've learned to read the sea's moods calm one moment, snarling the next. Dawn breaks, a thin line of gold on a horizon that's become your world. You're on deck, coiling rope, when the lookout's cry pierces the air again. There she blows. Another whale, another chase. Your pulse quickens, but this time it's less fear, more hunger. Yesterday's kill was your first, but the thrill is already a drug, and you're ready to row into the heart of it again. The crew springs to life, a well-oiled machine despite the grog and grumbling. Starbuck's voice cracks like a whip. Boats now. Move. You're in his whaleboat again, or in hand. Queequeg at the bow with his harpoon gleaming. The boat hits the water, and you pull hard, muscles burning as the Pequod fades behind. The sea is choppy today, waves slapping the boat's SI woods, spraying your face with salt. The whale's spout is a beacon, maybe a mile off, rising and falling as it cruises. Sperm whale. The lookout calls, and you feel the crew's focus sharpen. This is what you're here for: oil, glory, survival. The chase is on, and it's nothing like yesterday's. This whale is faster. Its spout's erratic, like it knows you're coming. You row, your breath ragged. The boat bouncing so hard you're sure it'll split. Starbuck steers, his eyes locked on the whale's path. She's a runner. He shouts, "Pull, damn you." You do, ignoring the ache in your shoulders, the blisters splitting on your palms. Queequeg stands, steady as a rock, his harpoon ready. The whale's back breaks the surface, a massive curve of black and gray, scarred from battles you can't imagine. It's close now, close enough to hear its breath, a deep whoosh that shakes you to your core. Let's pause for your mainstream history lesson, because the chase is where whaling lives or dies. In the 1840s, the whaleboat chase was the most dangerous part of the job. These boats, barely 30 feet long, carried 6 men, 4 rowers, a steersman, and a harpooner against creatures that could weigh 40 tons. The goal was to get close enough for the harpooner to strike, embedding an iron barb tied to a line. If it held, the whale would drag the boat in a Nantucket sleigh re-wooed, a high-speed, bone-rattling race that could last hours. The skill and nerve required were immense, and the stakes were higher. A wrong move could capsize the boat, leaving you miles from the ship in a sea that doesn't forgive. This was the heart of Nantucket's industry, where men turned fear into profit, one harpoon at a time. The whale dives, its tail flipping up, a wall of flesh that blocks the sun. The line goes taut, and you brace, the boat jerking forward. You're flying now, the sea a blur, the rope smoking as it unravels. Hold fast, Starbuck yells, and you grip the boat, praying the line doesn't snap or worse, tangle. The whale surfaces, spouting red, a sign Queequeg's harpoon hit deep. You cheer, but it's short-lived. This whale isn't done. It thrashes, sending waves that nearly swamp the boat. You bail with one hand, row with the other, your heart in your throat. Queequeg readies another harpoon, his calm a stark contrast to the chaos. Hey race, a weird little fact to cut the tension. Whales sometimes lobtail, slapping their tails on the water to communicate or warn off threats. Sailors thought it was just bad temper, but it's a deliberate signal, like a giant saying, back off. This whale's lobtailing now. Each slap a thunderclap that soaks you to the bone. You're not sure if it's angry or scared, but it's definitely not happy about the harpoon in its SI wood. You can't blame it, but you're too busy rowing to feel sorry. The chase stretches on, the whale diving and surfacing, dragging you in circles. Your arms are lead, your lungs fire, but you keep pulling. Starbuck's voice is your anchor. She's tiring. Stay with her. The whale's spouts are weaker, its dives shallower. Queequeg lands a second harpoon, the line singing as it buries deep. The sleigh re-wooed slows, the whale's strength ebbing. You're close now, close enough to see its eye, a dark pool that seems to hold the whole ocean. It's different from yesterday's whale, angrier, maybe, or just more alive. You shake off the thought and row, the boat inching closer. The academic debate centers on the whaleboat's role in whaling culture. Historians argue over whether these chases were the ultimate test of skill or a reckless gamble with men's lives. Some say the whaleboat forged a unique camaraderie, with crews bonded by shared danger. Others call it exploitation, pointing out that greenhands like you faced the same risks as veterans but earned a fraction of the pay. There's no agreement, but as you cling to the boat, spray in your face and a whale's tail looming, you feel both the bond with Queequeg and Starbuck and the raw unfairness of your tiny share. It's a truth you'll carry, win or lose. The whale's slowing, its movement sluggish. Starbuck signals for the lance, a long blade to finish the job. Queequeg takes it, his hands steady, and drives it deep, aiming for the heart. The whale convulses, the sea churning red, and you look away, the sight too raw. It rolls, lifeless, and the boat rocks in the sudden quiet. You're panting, soaked, your hands bleeding through the bandages you wouldn't have time to tie. The crew is silent, the only sound the creak of oars and the lap of waves. Starbuck nods, a rare flicker of approval. Good work, he says, and you feel a spark of PRI wood, even if your boat is screaming. Towing the whale back to the Pequod is a slog, the boat heavy with its prize. The ship grows larger, a haven after the chase's madness. The crew on deck is ready, ropes and hooks waiting to secure the whale. Ahab watches from above, his face a mask, his peg leg still. You wonder what he sees in this kill, another step toward whatever drives him. You're too tired to care. Your arms are done, your back a knot of pain. Pip's there when you climb aboard, his grin wide. You're a proper whaler now, he says, and you manage a weak smile. Maybe he's right. Supper is late, the forecastle dim and warm. Fleece's stew is a miracle, or maybe you're just starving. You eat with Queequeg and Pip, the crew's mood a mix of exhaustion and triumph. Stories fly. Stubb claims he saw the whale wink. Jonah swears it was the biggest he's seen. You stay quiet, the chase replaying in your mind. The whale's eye, the Red Sea, Queequeg's steady hand. You're part of this now, for better or worse. Sleep is a battle, your bunk a hard slab that can't ease the ache in your body. The Pequod rocks, the whale tied alongside wooed, its bulk a shadow in the dark. You dream of the chase, of waves and harpoons, of a whale that fights forever. The sea is your world, and you're learning its rules one hunt, one breathless moment at a time. You close your eyes, the ship's creak a lullaby, and let the waves carry you under. The Pequod rewits low in the Atlantic, 2 months out, the air thick with the smell of salt and yesterday's whale. You're on deck at first light, the sea a restless gray under a sky that's forgotten how to smile. Your hands are scarred now, your body leaner, tuned to the ship's endless sway. The last chase left you bruised but alive, and the crew's starting to treat you like less of a greenhand. Today, though, there's a new edge in the air. The lookout's cry comes just as you're swallowing a mouthful of hardtack. There she blows. Another whale, another chance to prove yourself. But this one feels different, like the sea's daring you to try. The deck explodes into motion. Starbucks shouting boats. Now, and you're already moving, muscle memory kicking in. You're in Queequeg's boat this time, a shift that makes your stomach lurch. He's the best harpooner, but his boat takes risks the others don't. You grab an oar, climb in, and the boat drops to the water with a jolt. Queequeg's at the bow, his harpoon a glint of steel, his eyes locked on the spout a mile off. Pull. Stubb, steering, barks, and you row, the sea fighting you with every stroke. The whale's spout is steady, a white plume against the gray, and you're chasing it like it's the only thing that matters. This whale is bigger than the last. It's back a rolling hill when it surfaces. You're close enough to see its scars, deep gouges from fights or ships you'll never know. Queequeg stands, his balance perfect, his harpoon raised. The boat's so near you hear the whale's breath, a deep huff that vibrates in your chest. Your arms burn, your heart's a drum, but you keep rowing, the rhythm your lifeline. Stubb's voice is low, urgent. Now Queequeg. The harpoon flies, a perfect arc, sinking deep into the whale's flank. The line screams, the boat lurches, and you're off a Nantucket sleigh re-wooed, faster and wilder than before. Let's pause for your mainstream history lesson, because harpooning is the art that defines whaling. In the 1840s, the harpoon was a whaler's deadliest tool, a barbed iron head, 3 feet long, attached to a wooden shaft and a coil of rope. The harpooner's job was to strike true, embedding the barb so it wouldn't pull free when the whale dove. A good hit could secure a whale worth thousands, and oil a bad one could lose it or the boat. Harpooners like Queequeg were the elite, their skill the difference between profit and disaster. The technique came from centuries of trial and error, blending Native American and European methods, and it made Nantucket's fleet the envy of the world. But it was brutal work, one misstep, and you were in the water with a very angry whale. The whale dives, dragging the boat at a speed that makes your teeth rattle. The line smokes, the rope's heat burning your hands even through the cloth you've wrapped them in. You brace, praying it holds. The sea's a blur, waves crashing over the bow, soaking you to the bone. Queequeg's calm, his eyes tracking the line's path, ready for the next strike. The whale surfaces, spouting red, and you cheer, but it's not over. This one's a fighter, lobtailing so hard the boat rocks like a toy. Stubb curses, steering to Avawai with the tail slam. She's a devil. He shouts, and you believe it. The whale's power, a force you can't fathom. Hey race, a weird little fact to ease the strain. Whales sometimes breach, leaping clear of the water in a display that's both majestic and terrifying. Sailors thought it was a show of strength, but it's likely a way to communicate or shake off parasites. You've heard stories of breaches crushing boats, and as this whale thrashes, you're half expecting it to try. It doesn't, but every lobtail feels like a warning, a reminder that you're on its turf. You grip your oar, rowing through the spray, and wonder how Queequeg stays so steady. The whale tires, its dives shorter, its spouts ragged. Queequeg lands a second harpoon, the line taut as a bowstring. The sleigh re-wooed slows, the boat still rocking but no longer flying. You're close now, close enough to see the whale's eye, a dark mirror that seems to judge you. Stub hands Queequeg the lance, and you look away as it goes in, the sea turning red again. The whale convulses, then stills, its bulk floating like a fallen giant. The boat's quiet, the crew's breath heavy. You're shaking, not from cold, but from the rawness of it all. Another kill, another mark on your soul. The academic debate is about the harpooner's role in whaling's mythology. Historians argue over whether men like Queequeg were celebrated heroes or exploited labor. Some say harpooners, often from Pacific Islands or Native American tribes, were valued for their skill, earning respect rare for non-whites in the 1840s. Others argue they were still subordinates, pied less than white officers despite their risks. There's no clear answer, but as you watch Queequeg clean his harpoon with quiet care, you see both a man who commands the boat, yet eats in the same damp forecastle as you. His skill is your survival, and that's truth enough for now. Towing the whale back is a grueling slog, the boat heavy with its load. The Pequod grows larger, a beacon in the fading light. The crew on deck is ready, hooks and ropes waiting. Ahab's there, his peg leg a steady thump, his eyes burning as he watches the whale. You wonder what he's chasing. Oil. Yes, but something more, something that makes the air around him crackle. You're too exhausted to dwell on it. Your hands are bloody, your body a map of aches. Pip's waiting when you climb aboard, his grin a lifeline. You're tougher than you look, he says, and you almost believe him. Supper is a blur, fleeces stew a warm weight in your gut. The forecastle is loud tonight, the crew swapping stories of the chase. Stubb claims the whale was big as a church. Jonas says he's seen bigger. Queequeg's quiet, but he catches your eye and nods, a gesture that feels like a gift. You're part of this now, not just a greenhand, but a whaler who's faced the beast and lived. The lantern sways, casting shadows that dance like the sea itself. Sleep is hard won. Your bunk a hard slab that can't ease the day's toll. The Pequod rocks, the whale tied alongside wooed, its presence a weight in the dark. You dream of harpoons, of Queequeg's steady hand, of a whale's eye that sees too much. The sea is your teacher, and today's lesson with sharp skill, nerve, and a touch of madness keep you alive. You close your eyes, the ship's creak a lullaby, and let the waves pull you under. The Pequod sits heavy in the Atlantic, 3 months out, the deck slick with salt and the faint reek of yesterday's whale. Dawn is a smudge of orange, barely cutting through the haze. You're up, your body a map of aches from the chase, but there's no rest today. The whale you killed is lashed alongside wooed, a massive shadow in the water, and now comes the real work, turning it into oil. You're no greenhand anymore, but this part cutting and boiling is new, and the crew's grim faces tell you it's no picnic. You pull on your boots, the leather cracked but loyal, and head to the deck, where the air already smells like labor and fire. The tryworks, a brick furnace me wood deck, is roaring, its iron tripods glowing red. Black smoke curls upward, stinging your eyes. Starbucks directing the crew, his voice hoarse but firm. Cutting stage now? Move. You join the line, handed a long pole with a blade, a cutting spade, Jonah calls it. The whale's tied tight to the ship, its bulk rolling with the waves. You climb onto the stage, a rickety platform slung over the SI wood, and your stomach lurches. You're inches from the sea, the whale's slick high wood beneath you, and one slip could send you to the sharks circling below. No pressure. The work begins, and it's brutal. You slice into the blubber, thick as a mattress, peeling it in long strips called blanket pieces. The spade's heavy, your arms shaking as you cut, blood and oil soaking your clothes. Queequeg's nearby, his cuts clean and sure, like he's carving a roast. Slow, steady, he says, his voice a low rumble. You nod, trying to mimic him, but your cuts are ragged, earning a grunt from Stub. You're butchering a whale, not a loaf, he says, half laughing. You grit your teeth and keep going. The deck above you a chaos of shouts and creaking winches as the blubbers hauled aboard. Let's pause for your mainstream history lesson, because processing the catch is what makes whaling pay. In the 1840s, a whale's blubber was the prize, rendered into oil that lit lamps and greased machines. A single sperm whale could yield 90 barrels, each worth a small fortune in Nantucket. The tryworks were the heart of this, boiling blubber into oil right on deck, a smoky, dangerous job that turned ships into floating factories. The oil was stored in casks, packed tight in the hold, and every barrel was a step toward profit. But it was grueling crews worked round the clock, covered in grease, with fires that could burn the ship if mishandled. This was Nantucket's alchemy, turning flesh into gold, and you're part of it now. The blubber comes aboard in slabs, heavy and glistening. You're on deck now, feeding the try-pots, the heat searing your face. The smell is overwhelming, fishy, fatty, with a tang that sticks in your throat. Pip's there, stirring the pots with a paddle, his face smudged with soot. Like cooking the world's worst stew, he says, grinning. You laugh, but it's a weak sound, drowned by the crackle of boiling fat. The oil drips into vats, golden in the firelight, and you're struck by the strangeness of it, this beast, so alive yesterday, now fueling the world's lights. Hey, race, a weird little fact to break the grimness. Some whalers ate fritters, bits of blubber fried crisp in the try-pots. It was a treat, like bacon from the sea, and the crew fought over them. Fleece hands you a piece, still hot, and you try it. The taste salty and rich, but the idea of eating whale makes your stomach turn. Better than my stew, Fleece says, winking, and you're not sure you agree. Still, you chew, if only to keep your strength up. The crew's laughter, rough and warm, makes the moment feel almost human. The work stretches into the night. The tryworks glow, turning the Pequod into a beacon. You're exhausted, your hands slick with oil, your clothes a ruin. The whale's shrinking, its blubber stripped, its bones exposed. You help hack at the head, a messy job to get the spermaceti, a waxy oil prized for candles. It's slow, the head too big for easy work, and sharks nip at the carcass, their fins slicing the water. You're too tired to be scared, but you keep your distance, the sea's hunger a quiet threat. The academic debate is about the environmental cost of this work. Historians argue over how much 19th-century whaling hurt whale populations. Some say the industry's scale thousands of whales killed yearly push species like the sperm whale toward collapse. Others argue the oceans were vast and whales resilient, with bigger declines coming later. There's no clear data from the time, so the debate lingers. As you slice blubber, the whale's size feels infinite, but the sharks and the blood tell a different story. You're part of this machine, and it's a weight you're starting to feel. Ahab watches from the quarterdeck, his peg leg a steady thump, his eyes on the whale like it's a puzzle he's solving. He sighed with little since the chase, but his presence is a pressure, like a storm waiting to break. Starbuck keeps the crew moving, his face grim but focused. Queequeg works silently, his strength a quiet anchor. Pip's chatter keeps you sane, his stories of past voyages a distraction from the gore. You're learning to lean on these men, their quirks and grit a lifeline in this endless task. By me wood night. The whale's nearly gone, its oil safe in barrels below. The tryworks still burn, the deck a mess of grease and ash. You're swaying on your feet, but there's no stopping. You help clean the pots, the oil's heat lingering on your skin. Fleece brings coffee, bitter but warm, and you drink it standing, the stars sharp above. The Pequod feels alive, its timbers creaking with the weight of new oil. You're part of that life now, your hands stained with its cost. Supper is late, a quick meal in the forecastle. Fleece's biscuits are hard but welcome, and you eat with Queequeg and Pip, the crew's mood subdued. The day's work has left its mark on your body, your mind, maybe your soul. Stories are few, but Jonah tells of a ship that caught fire from a trywork spark, a reminder of the risks you're running. You listen, the lanterns glow soft, the ships sway a comfort after the day's chaos. Sleep is a gift, your bunk a hard haven. The Pequod rocks, the sea a whisper outside wooed. You dream of blubber, of fire, of a whale's bones sinking into the dark. The sea is your world, and today it taught you its price labor, blood, and a beauty that cuts deep. You close your eyes, the ships hum a lullaby, and let the waves carry you away. The Pequod GLI woods through a glassy Pacific for months from Nantucket, the air warm and heavy with the promise of land. You're on deck, mending a frayed rope, your hands steady despite the blisters that never quite heal. The sea's been kind lately, the whales scarce but the weather fair. Your boat is lean now, your skin bronzed, and you move with the ship's roll like it's part of you. The crew's settled into a rhythm work. Eat, sleep, repeat, but today feels different. The lookout calls, not for a whale, but for a sail. Another ship, a rare speck on this endless blue, and the Pequod hums with a new kind of excitement. You squint at the horizon, spotting the distant masts. Starbuck, ever the pragmatist, orders the sails adjusted to close the gap. A gam, Pip whispers, bouncing on his toes. We'll have a proper chat. You've heard of gams when whaling ships meet to trade news, goods, and gossip, but this is your first. The crew's already buzzing, pulling out letters and trinkets to barter. You pat the half-written note in your pocket, meant for home, and wonder if ITLL finally leave the Pequod. The sea's a lonely place, and the promise of new faces feels like a holy woodie. The other ship, the Rachel, comes into view, her hull weathered but proud. She's a Nantucket whaler, like the Pequod, and the sight of her feels like a letter from home. The Pequod slows, the boats are lowered, and you're in Queequeg's, rowing toward the Rachel with a crate of tobacco and a bundle of letters. The sea's calm, the oars dipping in sync, and Queequeg's quiet hum sets the pace. Ahab stays aboard, his peg leg silent for once, but Starbuck's with you, his face softer than usual. Mind your manners, he says, half smiling. We're guests. The Rachel's crew welcomes you aboard, their accents a mix of Nantucket drawl and foreign lilts. Their captain, a wiry man named Gardiner, shakes Starbuck's hand, offering rum and news. You're handed a mug, the burn of it a shock after months of Fleece's weak coffee. The deck's a party sailors swapping stories, trading knives and scrimshaw, even passing around a woodle for a quick tune. You trade a carved whalebone pin for a worn book of sea shanties, feeling richer than you have in weeks. Pip's already charming a Rachel sailor with tales of your last chase, exaggerating your role to heroic proportions. You let him talk, grinning into your rum. Let's pause for your mainstream history lesson, because gams were a lifeline in the whaling world. In the 1840s, whaling ships could go years without seeing land, so meeting another vessel was a big deal. Gams were social and practical crews exchanged letters, supplies, and news of whale grounds or wars back home. They were also a chance to break the monotony with music, drinks, and sometimes a bit of mischief. For Nantucket whalers, gams were a thread to civilization, a reminder that the world still turned beyond the horizon. But they weren't always. Friendly rival ships might high-wooed good hunting spots, and tensions could flare. Still, a gam was a taste of human connection, and you're soaking it in. The Rachel's crew is hungry for news, and Starbuck shares what little the Pequod knows: prices of oil in Nantucket, a storm that sank a ship off Cape Horn. In return, Gardiner tells of a rich whale ground near the Marquesas, though his eyes flick away when pressed for details. You listen, sipping rum, and pass your letter to a Rachel sailor who promises to carry it home. It's a small thing, a few lines to your family, but letting it go feels like cutting a tether. You hope it reaches them, hope they're proud, hope you'll see them again. Hey Race, a weird little fact to make you smile. During gams, whalers sometimes traded whale stamps, crude drawings of whales carved into wood or bone, used to mark logbooks or barter. They were like trading cards for sailors, each one a boast of a kill. You see a Rachel man showing off a stamp, a sperm whale with an exaggerated tail, and you're tempted to carve one yourself. Queequeg has a few, tucked in his sea chest, but he doesn't brag. You're starting to think his silence holds more stories than Pip's chatter. The gam stretches into the afternoon, the sun high and hot. You sit with a Rachel harpooner, a Maori named Tane, who tells you about his home, islands green as emeralds. His tattoos rival Queequeg's, and you're bold enough to ask about one, a spiral on his cheek. For my son, he says, his voice soft. Born after I sailed. You nod, thinking of your own family, and the moment feels heavier than the rum in your hand. The sea binds you all, but it also keeps you apart, and you're learning to carry that ache. The academic debate is about the cultural impact of gams. Historians argue over whether these encounters were a melting pot or a clash of worlds. Some say gams created a shared whalers' culture, blending songs and skills from Nantucket to the Pacific. Others argue they highlighted divisions. White captains often looked down on native or foreign crews, even as they relied on them. You see both SI woods today. The Rachel's crew is a mix, like the Pequod's, and there's warmth in the trading, but you catch a Rachel officer sneering at Tan's tattoos. The sea's a strange place, equalizing and DV wooding in the same breath. As the sun dips, Starbuck signals it's time to go. You row back to the Pequod, the Rachel's fi-woodle fading behind. The crate's lighter now, traded for flour and a barrel of apples, real apples, a treasure after months of hardtack. You bite into one, the juice sweet and sharp, and it's like tasting home. The crew's quieter, the gam's glow lingering. Queequeg tucks a new whale stamp into his chest, his face unreadable. Pip's already planning the next gam, convinced he'll trade for a fi-woodle. You smile, but your thoughts are on Tane, on the letter, on the world you've left behind. Supper is lively, fleeces stew spiced with apples the crew begs him to add. The forecastle is warm, the lantern casting soft shadows. Stories from the Rachel mix with the Pequod's tales of storms, whales, and ports you'll never see. Queequeg hums a tune from the gam, and you try to join, your voice rusty but willing. Ahab's absent, his cabin a mystery, but Starbuck's there, his rare smile a gift. You're part of this crew, this ship, this fleeting moment of connection. Sleep comes easy, your bunk a familiar cradle. The Pequod sways, the sea a gentle hum. You dream of the Rachel, of Tan's spiral, of a letter sailing home. The sea's your world, but today it gave you a glimpse of something more: faces, voices, a thread to the life you'll return to someday. You close your eyes, the ship's creak a lullaby, and let the waves carry you under. The Pequod cuts through a restless Pacific, 5 months from Nantucket, the air thick with a damp heat that clings to your skin. You're on deck, scrubbing the tryworks soot from yesterday's boil, your hands black and your shirt a ruin. The sea's been moody lately, waves slapping the hull like an impatient hand. You're no stranger to the ship's rhythm now watches, chases, the endless grind of oil, but today the sky's a bruise, purple and swollen, and the crew's eyes keep flicking upward. A storm's coming, and you're about to learn what the sea's like when it stops playing nice. Starbuck's at the helm, his face tight as he scans the horizon. The sails are reefed, pulled tight to brace for wind, and the deck's a flurry of men securing ropes and hatches. Pip's best eye wooed you, lashing a barrel, his usual chatter muted. Big one, he mutters, nodding at the clouds. You've heard stories ships snapped like twigs, crews washed away, but they felt distant, like tales for tavern nights. Now, the air's electric, the sea hissing, and you're wondering if your knots are tight enough to keep you alive. The storm hits at noon, a wall of wind and rain that turns the world gray. The Pequod lurches, the deck tilting so sharp you grab a rail to stay upright. Waves crash over the bow, cold and heavy, soaking you in seconds. Starbuck's voice cuts through the roar. Hold fast. Pump the bilge. You stumble to the pump, your hands slipping on the wet handle, working it with Jonah, who's cursing the sea like it's a personal enemy. The ship groans, timbers creaking as if they'll split, and you're praying the hull's as tough as the shipwrights claimed. Let's pause for your mainstream history lesson, because storms were a whaler's worst enemy in the 1840s. Whaling ships like the Pequod were built strong, with oak planks and iron braces, but they were no match for a full gale. Storms sank dozens of ships each year, claiming lives and cargoes worth fortunes. Crews relied on skill and luck reefing sails, pumping bilge water, praying the masts held. Nantucket's logs are full of tales like the Essex, wrecked by a whale but finished by weather, or the Alexander, battered to splinters off Chile. The sea gave whalers their wealth, but it took its toll, and you're feeling that truth in every wave. The wind howls, tearing at the sails, and a crack like thunder splits the air as spar snaps, dangling ropes like broken limbs. You're sent aloft with Pequod, climbing the rigging in a world of rain and motion. The mast sways, the wind clawing at your clothes, and you're terrified, but Pequod's steady grip on your arm keeps you moving. Tie it down, he shouts, and you fumble with the ropes, your fingers numb, the knot somehow holding. You're back on deck, gasping, and Pequod claps your shoulder, a rare smile breaking through. You're alive for now. Hey, race, a weird little fact to lighten the chaos. Whalers believed storms could be charmed with rituals, like throwing a coin overboard or singing a specific shanty. Some crews carried storm bottles, vials of Litsui, wood that supposedly predicted weather by clouding up. You've seen Jonah muttering over a cloudy vial, swearing it's never wrong. Today, you wish you had one, or at least a coin to toss, because the sea's not listening to reason. Pip swears he's singing the right shanty under his breath, but the storm's laughing louder. The rain's a sheet now, the deck a river. You're at the pump again, your arms screaming, water sloshing ankle deep. A wave hits, bigger than the rest, and you're knocked flat, slee-wooding toward the rail. Pip grabs your arm, his small frame stronger than it looks, and you're back on your feet, coughing seawater. Stay with me, he yells, and you nod, the crew's grit the only thing keeping you from panic. Starbucks everywhere, tying lines, shouting orders, his comm a beacon in the dark. Ahab's on the quarterdeck, peg leg braced, his face wild as he glares at the storm like it's a whale he can harpoon. You don't know if he's mad or fearless, but his presence is a fire, burning through the fear. The academic debate is about the storm's role in whaling narratives. Historians argue over whether accounts of storms were exaggerated to glorify the whaler's life or downplayed to high-woo the industry's risks. Some say logs inflated the drama, painting captains as heroes against nature. Others argue survivors understated losses to keep investors calm. Nantucket's economy couldn't afford too many horror stories. You're living it now, and it's no tale. The Pequod's fighting, but every wave feels like a warning, and you're not sure how much is skill versus luck. Night falls, but the storm doesn't care. The tryworks are cold, the sails barely holding, and you're still pumping, your hands bleeding through the cloth you've wrapped them in. A mast creaks, threatening to give, but Queequeg and Stub reinforce it with ropes, their work a blur in the rain. You're sent below to check the hold, the dark a maze of barrels and water. It's leaking, not badly, but enough to keep you bailing with a bucket, your back a knot of pain. The ship's alive, fighting with you, and you're starting to love it. This stubborn wooden world that's all you have. The storm eases by dawn, the wind dropping to a growl, the waves no longer trying to kill you. You're on deck, soaked and shivering, but the Pequod's still afloat, her mast scarred but standing. Starbuck counts heads, his face gray with exhaustion, and everyone's here bruised, but here. Ahab's silent, his eyes on the horizon, like the storm was just a warm-up. Queequeg hands you a dry blanket, a small kindness that feels like a fortune. Pip's already joking, claiming he charmed the storm with his shanty. You laugh, the sound raw but real. Supper is a miracle, fleeces stew hot and thick, the forecastle a haven of warmth. The crew's quiet, the storm's weight lingering. Jonah tells of a gale that took his first ship, his voice low, and you listen, the lanterns glow soft. Queequeg carves a whalebone, his knife steady, and you wonder what he's seen that he doesn't say. You're part of this now, this crew that's faced the sea and won, at least for today. Sleep is deep, your bunk a cradle despite the damp. The Pequod sways, the sea a whisper after its roar. You dream of waves, of Queequeg's grip, of a ship that holds you like a mother. The sea's your world, and today it tested you nerve, strength, and the will to keep going. You close your eyes, the ship's creak a lullaby, and let the waves carry you under. The Pequod drifts in a sluggish Pacific, 6 months from Nantucket, the air heavy with a damp that seeps into your bones. You're on deck, patching a sail under a sun that's more glare than warmth. Your hands are steady, scarred from chases and storms, but your cough's new, a dry rasp that's been dogging you for days. The crew's quieter lately, worn by months of grinding work and short rations. The whales have been scarce, the hold only half full, and now something worse is creeping through the ship's sickness. You're learning the sea's not just storms and whales, it's a slow war against your own body, and you're not sure you're winning. You're sent below to the forecastle, where Pip's curled in his bunk, his usual grin gone. His face is flushed, his breath shallow, and you feel a twist of worry. Just a fever, he mumbles, but his eyes are glassy, and the forecastle's damp air isn't helping. Starbuck's there, checking on the men, his face tight, with something close to fear. Half the crew's coughing. He mutters to Jonah, who's brewing tea from the last of the ship's herbs. You're tasked with passing out mugs, the tea bitter but warm, and you wonder if it's enough to keep Pip or any of you going. The ship's doctor is Stub, which is as comforting as it sounds. He's got a chest of medicines, mostly rum and laudanum, and a book of remedies that looks older than the Pequod. You help him mix a tonic for Pip, a foul-smelling brew of molasses and who knows what. Swallow it, lad, Stubbs says, his usual laugh absent. Pip chokes it down, grimacing, and you force a smile, trying to high-wood your own cough. The forecastle smells of sweat and sickness, and you're starting to see why sailors talk about the sea as a jealous lover she gives, but she takes more. Let's pause for your mainstream history lesson, because health was a whaler's silent battle in the 1840s. Whaling ships were breeding grounds for disease, cramped quarters, poor food, and no doctors made every voyage a gamble. Scurvy, from lack of fresh fruit, rotted gums, and opened old wounds. Fevers, like the one hitting the Pequod, could spread fast, killing men or leaving them too weak to work. Nantucket's logs list countless ships limping home with half their crews dead, not from whales, but from sickness. The industry's wealth came at a human cost, and you're feeling it now. Every cough a reminder that the sea doesn't care if you're strong or clever. You're back on deck, the air a small relief, but the work doesn't stop. You're checking the water casks, some slimy with algae, and you're careful not to drink too deep. Jonah tells you about scurvy, how it turned his old crew's mouths black, and you check your gums in a shard of mirror, half expecting rot. They're fine, for now, but the ship's apples are long gone, and the salt pork's more gristle than meat. Fleece does his best, boiling beans with a scrap of fat, but it's not enough. You're hungry, not starving, but the kind of hungry that makes you dream of bread and butter. Hey, race, a weird little fact to lift the gloom. Whalers sometimes chewed whale gum, the rubbery skin left after boiling blubber, to keep their jaws busy and their stomachs fooled. It's not food, but it's something, and Jonah slips you a piece, leathery and tasteless. You chew, more out of boredom than hunger, and it's like gnawing a boot. Better than nothing, Jonah says, and you're not sure you agree. But you keep chewing, the crew's small acts of sharing a thread holding you together. Ahab's been scarce, his cabin a fortress, but you see him today, pacing the quarterdeck. His peg leg thumps, his face gaunt, like the sickness is gnawing at him too. He's muttering something about the white whale, and the crew exchanges glances. Starbuck's worried. You can tell, but he keeps the ship running, ordering extra watches to keep the healthy men busy. Pequod's one of the few untouched, his strength a quiet comfort. He carves a whalebone charm for Pip, a tiny fish, and tucks it under the boy's blanket. For life, he says, and you hope it's enough. The academic debate is about medicine at sea. Historians argue over whether whaling crews were victims of ignorance or just bad luck. Some say the era's medical knowledge bleeding, purgatives, little else was useless against shipboard diseases. Others argue captains like Ahab prioritized profit over health, skimping on supplies, or pushing sick men to work. There's no clear answer, but as you watch Stubb dose Pip with laudanum, you see both ignorance in the cure and a grim necessity to keep the Pequod moving. You're part of that machine, and it's a weight you're carrying. By afternoon, you're helping clean the hold, a dark maze of barrels and damp wood. The air's foul, and your cough worsens, but you work, knowing woodleness won't help. Jonah's there, his own cough a match for yours, and he tells you to chew garlic from the galley's last bulb. Old trick, he says, and you try it. The burn a distraction from the ache in your chest. The hold's a reminder of why you're here: oil, wealth, a future, but it feels far away when Pip's fever won't break. Night brings a small mercy. Pip's sleeping, his breathing easier. You're on watch. The stars highwood dimmed by clouds, the sea a black mirror. Pequod joins you, silent but solely wood, and you're grateful for his presence. The Pequod's quieter, the crew's laughter replaced by coughs and murmurs. Ahab's still on deck, his eyes on the horizon, like he's chasing something the rest of you can't see. You wonder if he's sick too, or if his fire burns too hot for fever. The thought's fleeting, you're too tired to puzzle it out. Supper is sparse, Fleece stretching the beans with extra water. The forecastle's warm. The lanterns glow a soft anchor. Pequod eats slowly, his charm making paused. And Jonah tells a story of a fever that spared his old ship, his voice hopeful. You listen, chewing whale gum, and feel the crew's bond, frayed but holding. Pip's bunk is empty, he's in the sick bay now, a corner of the hold with a blanket for a wall. You're praying for him, in your way, though you're not sure who's listening. Sleep is fitful, your bunk damp and cold. The Pequod sways, the sea a restless hum. You dream of Pip's grin, of garlic and whale gum, of a fever that doesn't win. The sea's your world, and today it taught you its cost not just blood or storms, but the slow grind of health slipping away. You close your eyes, the ship's creak a lullaby, and let the waves carry you under. The Pequod drifts in a languid Pacific, 8 months from Nantucket, the air thick with a stillness that feels like time itself has slowed. You're on deck, splicing rope under a sun that bakes your skin, your cough finally fading but your body lean to the point of gauntness. The sea's a mirror today, reflecting a sky too vast to hold hope. Months of chases, storms, and sickness have worn the crew thin, and the hold's still not full. You're no greenhand now, but the endless stretch of days, each blurring into the next, makes you wonder if the sea's playing a cruel joke, promising whales and home, but delivering only waves. You're at the bow, mending a net with Pip, who's back from the sick bay, his grin weaker but stubborn. His fever broke, a small victory, but the crew's mood is heavy. The whales are scarce, the rations thinner, and homesickness gnaws like a rat in the hold. You've stopped counting days, but you feel them, each one a weight in your chest. Pip hums a shanty, off-key but earnest, and you join in, your voice rusty. Keeps the ghosts away, he says, and you nod, though you're not sure if he means the sea's or your own. The routine's your anchor watches, repairs, the endless wait for a spout. You're better at knots now, your hands moving without thought, but the monotony is a grind. You scrub decks, check barrels, help fleece peel potatoes that are more sprout than spud. The Pequod's a world unto itself, but it's shrinking, the forecastle's damp walls closing in. You catch yourself staring at the horizon, not for whales, but for anything to break the sameness. Even Starbucks' clipped orders feel rote, and Ahab's pacing, his peg leg a steady thump, is a metronome for your restless thoughts. Let's pause for your mainstream history lesson, because the long haul defined whaling in the 1840s. Voyages often lasted 3 to 4 years, sometimes longer, as ships chased whales across oceans. The Pequod's journey Atlantic to Pacific, maybe Arctic next, was typical, following migration routes to fill the hold with oil. But the wait between whales could stretch months, testing crews with boredom, hunger, and despair. Nantucket's wealth came from this endurance, but so would its losses, mutinies, desertions, and men broken by the sea's indifference. The industry's logs note ships returning with empty holds or crews too worn to sail again, a reminder that time was as much an enemy as storms. You're in the hold today, checking casks with Jonah, the air cool, but sour with mildew. The oil barrels are fewer than you'd hoped, each one a hard-won prize from chases you still dream about. Jonah's quieter now, his story's sparse, and you wonder if he's missing home too. 2 years on my last ship, he says, tapping a barrel. Felt like 10. You ask what kept him going, and he shrugs. Hope, mostly. And rum. You laugh, but it's a hollow sound. Hope's a fragile thing out here, and the rum's long gone. Hay race, a weird little fact to spark a smile. Whalers sometimes played whalebone checkers, carving game pieces from leftover bones to pass the time. It was a way to fight the boredom, turning scraps of their work into something human. Pequod's got a set, rough but beautiful, and he's teaching you the game in the forecastle's dim light. You're terrible, losing every match, but the clack of bone on wood is a comfort, a reminder that even in this endless sea, you can make something your own. You'll win someday, Pequod says, his voice warm, and you want to believe him. The academic debate is about the psychological toll of these long voyages. Historians argue over whether whalers were driven by resilience or desperation. Some say the sea forged a unique strength, with crews bonding over shared hardship, creating a culture of endurance. Others argue it broke men, with isolation and monotony breeding madness or mutiny. There's no consensus, but you feel both. What's the Pequod's crew is your family, Queequeg and Pip your brothers, but the weight of days without end makes you wonder how much you can take. Ahab's obsession is muttering about a white whale doesn't help, casting a shadow over the ship. By afternoon, you're on watch, the sea flat and empty. You carve a whalebone charm, a clumsy fish like the one Queequeg made for Pip, your knife slipping but learning. It's for your sister, a promise you'll bring home something real. The act steadies you, a small rebellion against the sea's vastness. Pip joins, his chatter a lifeline. He talks about his home, a shack in Nantucket, and you share a memory of your mother's bread, warm from the oven. The words hurt, but they keep you tethered, a thread to the life you'll reclaim. Supper is grim, fleeces stew watery, the beans stretched thin. The forecastle's warm, but the air's heavy with unspoken fears. Starbuck eats with you, a rare moment, and his talk of his wife and son in Nantucket cuts deep. You got someone waiting? He asks, and you nod, thinking of your family, their faces fading like old ink. Queequeg's carving again, his knife a steady rhythm, and Jonah's asleep, his snores a soft protest. Ahab's absent, his cabin a fortress, but his shadow lingers, his quest a weight you all carry. Night watch is yours, the stars sharp but cold. The Pequod's quiet, the sea a black glass that mirrors your thoughts. You think of home, of the letter you sent in the gam, of the years still ahead. You think of Pip's fever, Queequeg's calm, Ahab's fire. The sea's teaching you patience, or maybe it's breaking you, and you're not sure which. You hold the whalebone fish, its edges rough but yours, and feel a spark of something hope. Maybe, or just the will to keep going. Sleep is a struggle, your bunk a damp slab. The Pequod sways, the sea a whisper that carries both promise and threat. You dream of whalebone checkers, of Pip's shanty, of a horizon that holds more than waves. The sea's your world, and today it taught you its slowest lesson: endurance, the art of living through the long, empty days. You close your eyes, the ship's creak a lullaby, and let the waves carry you under. The Pequod re-woods high in the Pacific, 2 years and change from Nantucket, the air sharp with a southern chill as you near Cape Horn. You're on deck, coiling rope under a sky streaked with pink, your hands rough as the ship's oak. The hold's nearly full, barrels of oil stacked tight, a fortune in whale fat that's cost you sweat, scars, and too many dreams. You're a whaler now, not the greenhand who stumbled aboard, but the years have carved you lean, your eyes older than your face. Today, Starbuck announced it. The hunt's done, the course set for home. You're homeward bound, and the word Nantucket feels like a prayer your Afro-eye would to believe. The crew's alive with it, a buzz that cuts through the usual grind. Pip's whistling a shanty, his fever long gone, his grin bright as the sails snapping above. Queequeg's polishing his harpoon, though the chases are over, his quiet PRI wooed a steady hum. Even Starbuck's softer, his orders laced with a rare warmth. We've earned it, lads, he says, checking the charts. You helped secure the whaleboats, their wood scarred from 100 hunts, and feel a strange pang they're part of you. these frail slivers that face giants. The Pequod's turning north, her bow aimed for home, and you're daring to imagine solely wood ground, a bed that doesn't sway, a meal that isn't fleece's stew. The sea's kind today, waves gentle, the wind a steady push. You're on watch, scanning a horizon that's no longer about spouts but land somewhere, eventually. You've seen islands, gams, storms, but Nantucket's a ghost, a memory of cobblestones and lanterns that feels half-dreamed. You pull out the whalebone fish you carved for your sister, its edges smoother now from months in your pocket, and wonder if she'll recognize you. The sea's changed you harder, quieter, with a heart that knows both wonder and loss. Let's pause for your mainstream history lesson, because heading home was a whaler's rare triumph in the 1840s. A successful voyage, like the Pequod's, meant a hold full of oil 2,000 barrels, maybe, worth tens of thousands in Nantucket's markets. The return was a gamble. Those storms, leaks, or bad navigation could sink a fortune before it reached port. Crews like yours spent years chasing whales across oceans, and the journey back was no wholly woody ships needed repairs. Rations were low, and men's nerves frayed from the long haul. Nantucket's wealth was built on these returns, but so were its Waiwudo's walks, a reminder that not every ship made it. You're carrying that hope now, every barrel a step toward home. The deck's busy, the crew patching sails and scrubbing the tryworks' last ash. Jonah's whistling, his stories lighter, tales of taverns held drink dry when you dock. First coins for a new coat, he says, winking, and you laugh, thinking of your own plans: a hot meal, a real bath, a letter to your family that doesn't take years to arrive. Pip's carving a new whalebone checker, swearing he'll beat Queequeg this time. You're betting on Queequeg, but you cheer Pip on, the game a small spark in the endless days. Hay race, a weird little fact to warm the moment. Whalers often carved homeward-bound flags from whalebone or cloth, hoisting them when the course turned for port. It was a signal to other ships, a boast of survival, and a charm for safe passage. You helped make one yesterday, a rough canvas stitched with Nantucket or bust, and it's flapping above the mainmast now. Starbuck rolled his eyes, but even he smiled, and you feel a swell of PRI wood every time you glance up. The sea's not done with you, but you're claiming this moment, a mark of the journey's end. Ahab's the shadow in this light. He's on the quarterdeck, his peg leg a slow thump, his eyes fixed on the sea like it owes him something. The crew whispers about his white whale, a ghost that's haunted him since the voyage began. Starbuck's tense, his talks with Ahab short and sharp. You've heard fragments: Ahab's leg, a whale's jaw, a vow that chills the air. He's not celebrating the return, and his fire makes you uneasy. You focus on the flag, on Queequeg's steady hands, on Pip's laugh, and push Ahab's shadow ACI wood. The academic debate is about the return's impact on whalers. Historians argue over whether coming home was a rebirth or a reckoning. Some say the sea forged men into heroes, returning with wealth and stories to build Nantucket's legend. Others argue it broke them, leaving sailors adrift in a world that moved on without them, their skills useless on land. You feel both the Pequod's your crucible, but you wonder if home will fit the man you've become. The crew's hope is real, but so is the fear, a quiet thread in every shanty and knot. By afternoon, you're in the hold, checking the oil barrels, their weight a promise of pay. The air's cool, sour with tar, but the casks are tight. No leaks to haunt the return. Jonah's there, his cough gone, his talk of home a steady stream. Got a girl waiting, he says, and you smile, thinking of your sister, your parents, the farm you left. You've got a lay, a share of the oil, and dreams of what ITLL by a new start, maybe, or just a season free from plows. The hold's a treasure chest, and you're guarding it with every check. Supper's a feast, fleece stretching the last potatoes into a hash that's almost good. The forecastle's warm, the lantern casting gold on weathered faces. Queequeg's carving a new whale stamp, a gift for Starbuck, and Pip's telling a tale of a mermaid and what he swears he saw. You laugh. The crew's joy a bomb after months of grind. Starbuck joins, his stories of Nantucket's winters soft and wistful. Ahab's absent, his cabin a dark star, but the forecastle's yours tonight. A circle of men hove faced the sea and lived. Night watch is calm, the stars a blanket above. You're at the bow, the Pequods hum a song of home. The sea's gentle, a rare gift, and you hold the whalebone fish, its shape a promise to your sister. You think of Nantucket's docks, of faces waiting, of a life you'll reclaim. Ahab's shadow lingers, his quest await, but you're homeward bound, and that's enough. The sea's your world, and today it gave you hope, a horizon that holds land, not just waves. Sleep is sweet, your bunk a cradle despite its damp. The Pequod sways, the sea a soft whisper. You dream of cobblestones, of Pip's shanty, of a flag that says you made it. The sea's taught you its lessons: strength, loss, and the will to keep sailing. You close your eyes, the ship's creak a lullaby, and let the waves carry you toward home. The Pequod GLI woods into Nantucket's harbor, 3 years from the day you left, the morning crisp with a salt breeze that smells like home. You're at the bow, hands gripping the rail, your body a map of scars and sinew from whales, storms, and time. The town's cobblestones and lanterns spark in the dawn, a sight so familiar it hurts. The hold's full, oil barrels stacked like gold, and the crew's alive, though leaner, quieter, marked by the sea. You're no greenhand now, but a whaler, returning with a lay that might buy a future if the sea lets you keep it. Nantucket's waiting, and you are ready to step ashore, though part of you wonders if you still belong. The docks are a chaos of color and sound, merchants shouting, gulls screaming, families scanning the ship. You spot the Pequod's flag, Nantucket or bust, flapping proud, and your chest tightens. Starbuck's at the helm, Goe wooding the ship to its berth, his face soft with relief. Pip's best I wooed you, his grin why wooed, waving at a woman who might be his mother. Queequeg's polishing his harpoon one last time, his eyes on the shore like he's measuring it against his islands. Ahab's on the quarterdeck, peg leg silent, his gaze distant, as if the white whale still haunts him. You push the thought ACI wooed and focus on the dock, where a crowd's growing. Faces you hope include your own. The gangplank drops, and you're ashore. The ground strange under your boots, solely wood but wrong after years of sway. A merchant's clerk checks the crew list, your name a quick nod, and you're free sort of. Your lay's to be settled later. A share of the oil that'll come in coin. But for now, you're carrying the whalebone fish for your sister, its edges worn smooth. The dock's a swirl of reunions, Jonah's swept into a woman's arms. Pip's running to his family. Starbuck's holding a boy who must be his son. You scan the crowd, heart pounding, and see her, your sister, taller now, her face a mix of joy and shock. You're home, and the word feels like a weight lifting. Let's pause for your mainstream history lesson, because returning to port was the whaler's payoff in the 1840s. A ship like the Pequod, with 2,000 barrels of oil, could fetch $50,000 in Nantucket's markets, a fortune split among owners, officers, and crew. Greenhands like you got the smallest lay, maybe 1/200th, but it was enough for a year's wages if you were frugal. The return was Nantucket's lifeblood, fueling shipyards, shops, and grand houses, but it was also a reckoning. Some whalers came back rich, others broken, and many never returned, their names carved on church stones. You're among the lucky, standing on solely wood ground, but the sea's mark is deep, a story you'll carry forever. The town's changed, or maybe you have. The streets are busier, new houses gleaming where fields once stood. You walk with your sister, her chatter filling the gaps your silence leaves. She's got questions, whales, storms, Ahab, but you answer in pieces, the sea too big for words. You pass the rusty anchor, where you first heard Amos tales, and it's smaller than you remember, the Alesh tang no match for fleece's stew. Your lay's settled by noon, a purse of coin heavier than you expected, and you're thinking of a farm, a shop, a life that's yours. But the sea's whisper lingers, a call you're not sure you can ignore. Hey race, a weird little fact to spark a smile. Returning whalers often brought curios, shells, carvings, even coconuts to sell or gift in Nantucket. They were proof of the world beyond, treasures for a town tied to the sea. You've got a scrimshaw whale from Pequod, a gift from your last gam, and you give it to your sister, her eyes wide-wooed. From a real whale? She asks, and you nod, the memory of Pequod's knife a warm ache. The sea gave you more than oil, it gave you brothers, and you're already missing them. The academic debate is about the whaler's reintegration. Historians argue over whether returning home was a triumph or a trauma. Some say whalers like you brought wealth and status, shaping Nantucket's golden age. Others argue the sea left men adrift, their skills useless, their minds haunted by years of loss and danger. You feel both the coins real, your sister's hug a balm, but Ahab's shadow, Pip's fever, the whale's eyes follow you. The town's your home, but the Pequod was your world, and you're caught between them, a man of two lives. By afternoon, you're at the family farm, the fields greener than memory. Your mother's bread is as good as you dreamed, your father's handshake firm but trembling. They're older, and you're struck by time's theft, the years you gave the sea. You tell stories Pequod's harpoon, the storm's roar, the gam's fi woodle editing the blood and fear. Your sister hangs on every word, the whalebone fish in her hand, and you wonder if she'll dream of the sea. You hope she doesn't, you hope she does. The farm's a haven, but it's small after the Pacific, and you're restless, your feet itching for a deck. The crew scatters, their goodbyes quick but heavy. Pip's back with his family, promising to visit. Jonah's at the tavern, his coat new but his laugh the same. Pequod's shipping out again, his island's calling, and you clasp his hand, words failing. Starbuck's home, his son on his shoulders, but his eyes hold the sea's weight. Ahab's gone, vanished into Nantucket's alleys, his white whale a mystery you'll never solve. The Pequod's docked, her oil sold, her deck quiet. You pass her on your walk, her hull a friend you owe your life to, and you salute her, a silent thanks. Supper's a family affair, the table groaning with food you'd forgotten could exist: roast beef, apples, real butter. You eat slow, savoring. The lanterns glow a softer echo of the foxhole. Your sister asks about Pequod, Pip, the whales, and you tell her, the story's easier now. Your parents listen, proud but wary, and you see the years you missed in their lines. The sea gave you coin, strength, a name, but it took time, and you're counting the cost. You're home, but you're still sailing, the Pequod's creak in your dreams. Sleep is strange, the bed too soft, the room too still. You lie awake, the whalebone fish on the table, the sea's hum in your ears. You think of Nantucket's docks, of the Pequod's flag, of a life you'll build with your lay. You think of Pequod's smile, Pip's shanty, Ahab's fire. The sea's your teacher, and today it taught you home, a place you love, a place you've outgrown, a place you'll carry forever. The harbor's lights fade as you drift toward sleep, the world softening like a ti wood going out. You're not on the Pequod now, not chasing whales or fighting storms. You're in a quiet room, The air warm, the bed a gentle cradle. The sea's still there, a whisper in your heart, but it's distant, its waves lapping at the edge of a dream. You're home, your sister's laugh echoing, your coin safe, your story yours to tell. The horizon's not a hunt anymore, it's a promise, soft and slow, of mornings without salt, of fields that don't sway. Let the sea rest, let the whales swim, let the Pequod sleep. You're here, and that's enough. Good night.